In this video, we're going to learn how to use significant figures both in measurements and in calculations. So last class or last video, we learned about significant figures and how to count significant figures. Now we're going to learn how to use significant figures in measurements as well as calculations. So in this first example, we're going to look at using significant figures within measurements. The idea of using significant figures in measurements is that the quality of the tool that we're going to be measuring with is going to be reflected within our significant figures. The general rule that we're going to use is we're always going to measure all the digits that we are certain of, and then we're going to go one more digit as an estimate. Very similar to what we learned with our quad beam balance, that we would measure what we were certain of, and then we would estimate one more digit. For instance, let's say that we're using this ruler here on the left-hand side. Everybody in the class would all agree that this shaded area extends between the 3 and the 4. So we know it's going to be 3 point something. So now when we go to the next markings, there are not enough markings that everybody would agree on the next digit. That means the next digit is an estimate. So some of you may go, ooh, that's about a 1/7 of the way over. That's an 1/8 of the way over. So we would go 3.7 or 3.8. But that 0.7 and 0.8 is an estimate. So we've already estimated. So this type of ruler, we are allowed to measure to the 10th and no more. However, let's take a look at the right-hand side. Everybody would agree that this shaded area is between a 3 and a 4. The 4 is not shown, but it's between the 3 and the 4. So we know it's going to be 3 point something. But look at the markings. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So now the markings indicate to us that we are certain of that next digit. It's between the 0.7 and the 0.8 marking. So we know our answer is going to be 3.7, and now we've got to decide. Is it close to the line? Maybe it's a 3.72 or 3.73. Is it midline? I don't know if I agree with this estimate that I put of 5. I think that would need to be a little bit further to be a 5, but maybe 3.72. 3.73. But the important part is that last digit, in this case the hundredths place, is an estimate. So this ruler with its markings has been designed, has been made in order to measure to the hundredths place, whereas the ruler on the left can only measure to the tenths place. Now let's take a look here. Would you be able to walk through and get an estimate or an appropriate measurement using significant figures with each one of these devices? This is a beaker, this is a graduated cylinder, and this is a titration pipette. Notice the 20 is on the top and the 21's on the bottom. Titration pipettes are listed with the smaller numbers down to the bigger numbers. So let's look here. We know we're between the 40 and the 60, and we're less than the midline, so we know it's going to be 40 something, but I'm already having to estimate. So I'm not going to get any decimals in my answer. It's going to be 40, maybe it's a little past midline, 46, maybe a little bit further, 47, 48. This type of beaker can only be read to the ones place. It cannot be read to any decimal places. It can only be read to the ones. Now let's take a look at this. If this is 35 and that's 40, the next line is 36, 37, 38, 39, 40. So I know this is between 36 and 37. So 36 point, and now I'm having to estimate in that space where the liquid is. And this liquid, we always look at the bottom of the curvature right here. We call that the meniscus. You always look at the bottom of the meniscus. So I'm going to say it's 36.5 maybe 36.4, maybe 36.6. But this reading allows me to go to the nearest tenth, whereas this beaker only allowed me to go to the nearest whole place, the nearest ones place. So now let's look at this. If this is 20, that's 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, 0.8, 0.9. So each one of these are worth 0.1. So we know it's got to be 20.3. And now we got to estimate in this space. It looks like it's pretty close to 20.4. So I'm going to say 20.38, 20.39, something like that. So this titration pipette allows us to measure to the nearest hundredths place. This allows us to measure to the nearest tenth. This allows us to measure to the nearest whole number. So when we are looking at significant figures, we are looking at the device, and the precision of the device allows us to know what kind of the quality of tool we are using. The quality of the tool is going to be reflected within our significant figures. So here, only to the ones place. Here to the tenths, here to the hundredths. I hope this helps you understand being able to take measurements with significant figures.